السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. نرجع في حلقة جديدة مع الخبيرة مريان اللي عندها خبرة أكثر من 21 سنة في مجال تخصص مع اطفال التوحد. بما أني حطيت أسئلة على الانستغرام وطلبت من المتابعين أن يسألون أسئلة معينة منها، فأحد الأسئلة راح أبتدي من الأسئلة الأولى اللي وصلتني وبعدين راح أترجم لكم إياها بالعربي. طيب, welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
We are honored to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you for accepting my request.
Happy to be here.
It's valuable for the mothers in my channel, and they need some answers for their questions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm lucky to have lots of resources here, but some women and mothers don't have that option. So I'm trying to provide that for them.
Typically, autism shows its face around 2 to 3 years old. Children start to lose skills. Maybe they're beginning to talk and they stop talking. They stop making eye contact. They're not as social. And all those kinds of things can happen around 3 years old. Some parents have seen, once they learned about the autism, have seen their young baby infant have characteristics of autism from the start. I have never met a parent who has reported that to me, but I have read that. And they're very specific characteristics. For instance, a child might be very fussy and crying and cranky, and the parent realizes, well, if she only does this, the child will stop. Or if she, and she can only do this if she, we tend to move around as parents with our children to calm them down. But the children on the spectrum only want to go one way or walk one way. They only want to walk, say, in a rectangle type movement. It's very interesting, very diverse, just like every child is different. But typically the 2 to 3 year olds are the ones where the skills start to go down, and that's the ages where they're diagnosed if they're brought to a pediatric diagnostician.
Okay.
There is no known cause right now. If anything, there is a little vision of perhaps it being a little bit genetic coming from the father's side. We talked about this in the other video. And it could go from father to daughter, but typically it goes father to son. And the father may or may not have autism. He might have characteristics, but not really ever been labeled autistic. So he might be very rigid in his work habits, or very particular where everything goes on his desk. Kind of not lined up, but this goes here, this goes there, and we know people that are like that. But if it's more than just that, you can see it in the father, and then you can sort of see it in the son, and you say, oh, well, maybe it was passed down. But right now, they're still looking at it. Yeah. I wish I knew too, because if we knew, then we could prevent it.
Yeah, or we can have kind of a medication or something.
Or medicate. That's true.
That's funny because I did the test for autism, and I wasn't autistic, but I was like telling my husband, go do the test.
And now that I know him, I don't see any autism characteristics. I see autism characteristics in some men that I know, but they're not truly autistic. They're just people who are more regimented.
Yeah.
I believe it was in maybe the 50s. I'm not real certain about that, but I will tell you that I graduated my university in 1983 with a special education degree for physically disabled, and at the time they called it mentally handicapped children. No mention of autism in 1983. It was like it didn't exist. But yet, when we go back in time, there are children that truly had autism, but they weren't labeled because not a lot of doctors really knew about it, which surprises me. I'm kind of perplexed about that whole issue because they just thought that they had a mental illness or were mentally impaired.
Yeah.
So, but now we know.
I heard before, like back times, very old days, they used to use electric shock their brains that they thought they're like mentally disordered in a way.
Right.
So, yeah.
For many things.
Yeah, many
actually.
things,
Yeah.
not only for autism.
Right.
So thank God we're not in that era.
Yes, thank you. I would say yes, once a child is able to express themselves for any other simple thing. And you may have to teach them that people get belly aches, headaches. We call them boo-boos when they're in preschool, but injuries or we're bleeding, so that they can tell you, oh, my head is hurting. I have one of those things called a headache. They might say, so some things need to be taught so that they can tell you if they have language. If they don't have language, but they have the cognitive ability to express things, you could do it in pictures. So it could be a face with, eyes, nose, and lips, and maybe a red head. And a body and maybe a red belly, or turn to the back, and if maybe they're constipated or they have issues with bowel movements, it could be like a red bottom. So there's ways non-verbally
to help them
express, and they could show, just like Fari shows the colors to me now. She points. She can't say the colors, but she can point now. She understands what that means, that this color means this pencil, this red pencil. So that goes the same with being ill. That's a really hard one because a lot of it comes from frustration. So I think the more simply you can talk, try not to be upset, use a soft, soothing voice. If there's something that they love to do or have, you can give that to that child. Some children want to be coddled. Some children do not want to be coddled. So you have to kind of gauge which way your child goes so that you learn that maybe they just like their hand touched. You have to, it's like being a detective. You have to find out what makes them...
the signs and...
Right, that makes them feel better, that you can say, oh, well, this will work for this. Some kids love having their hair massaged, and some kids do not. So that could be a source of comfort to them. Putting a show on, which I'm not real big of videos, unless they're instructional videos. Not to say that once in a while showing a fun video is not a bad thing, but instructional videos are the best. But if they need a comforting video or music, I tend to use a lot of music in my classroom. Just
to calm them
down. Classical music is wonderful. Some things without words are comfortable, relaxing music. This is a hard one. Sometimes children do that. It's self-stimulatory, as is sometimes shaking their hands, bobbing their head, jumping. We know Fari does a lot of this. I find she does it when she's excited. Mostly. I don't think she does it out of any kind of fear or being upset or anything like that. She gets excited, and and I say to her, "Oh, you're so excited! Look at your hands moving. You're so excited." So I'm talking for her. So if you know what the issue is, you might be able to say, you're hungry, you want to eat,
Yeah.
or whatever it is that you think that might be bothering that child. But visuals are a wonderful thing to have. So the pictures.
Yeah.
I don't know if we talked about that in the
Yeah,
class. But
I did the
okay.
videos of all the visuals and
All
the
right.
stuff that the mother have to have.
Okay. Some things you can't change, but people have to be hygienic. You know, you have to, get in their bottoms and clean them so they don't get infections and that kind of a thing. Buffer body odor, you want to keep them clean. But I would go with sponge baths because they're the least intrusive at the time.
Yes.
And I would start, even for a young child, do the sponge baths and then let them play in water with their hands.
Like the
or
bubble
their
bath,
feet.
you mean?
Well, yeah, lean over the tub and play in the bubbles. Have cups, especially for young kids. It's a little harder. I don't really work with older children, so I sometimes have a more difficult time helping someone who has an older child. But playing with cups in the water so their hands get wet and they get used to that. Playing with objects in the water, putting little plastic fish in the water and little boats in the water, that kind of thing. So they get a little bit more used to it. And maybe even getting in the water with their clothes on, which I know it sounds crazy, but for them,
helps.
it might be, anything else. It might be like, oh, well, I can go in here because I have clothes on.
Yeah.
And once they get in the water and they've got their clothes on, it might take 3 weeks before they even sit down, but they might sit down in their clothes on, and that's okay. I know it sounds crazy, but in time you can work with, well, let's just take your shorts off.
Yeah.
And then get in.
Yeah.
And then in time, let's take your underwear off and then get in.
Yeah.
So it's, you have to go step by step and go at their pace, not yours. It's really important. Well, as any child grows, right, there's new experiences, different levels of experiences, right? As they mature, they might like someone and don't know how to tell somebody that they like them or want to be a friend. Just expressing their desires and their needs as they grow older. And if she's verbal, you need to be there to help her express those thoughts. And I will say to parents too, and it's helped me. I'll have to get the man's name that does these interviews. And he interviews special needs, mostly younger people and sometimes children, across many disabilities. And he talks to them simply about their disabilities. And you can learn a lot about
how they feel,
what they want, what they feel nobody told them. It's amazing. I find it very amazing.
The difficulties they face.
The difficulties. All my friends have boyfriends. Well, I don't know even how to go talk to a boy. Why didn't anybody tell me how to talk to a boy? Because kids on the spectrum need to be told.
Yes.
It's this, and this.
Yeah.
They need to be told. They don't just absorb things like typical people do. So,
it's a different way of dealing with them. And what is normal to us, it's not normal to them. And what is normal to them, it's not normal to us.
Right. And if you listen to these videos that I will give you the name of the man who interviews, you can learn a lot about autism in particular by the interviews that he does with these young girls and boys who have it, who can express what it's like to be autistic.
That's great. That's lots of information and the valuable ones. Thank you, Marian.
You're welcome.
And probably I'm going to have another interview with you when you are away on Zoom, or
we can do that.
Maybe I'll drive towards your place.
We can meet halfway.
Knock on your door. I'm like, I'm here for the interview. You can run away.
I enjoy this immensely. I really do.
Thank you for being here, and I'm just learning. I'm always learning.
You will